Welcome to Obey Your Strengths with Gallup certified strengths coach, Kathy Kirsten.
Well, hi, Lorenzo.
Well, hi, Kathy.
Well, thanks for being here. I know you. I have known you for years, but I have never gotten to know you like I did whenever I read the Cilantro Diaries. Because we're just co-working acquaintances.
I hope you don't hate me now that you've read the book.
No. After you started naming names in your book, I was probably on, I don't know, chapter 3. I went ahead and went to the search engine and put my own name in to make sure I wasn't in your book. And thankfully I wasn't. No, but there'd be no reason to, because we barely know each other. So it was so great.
That's in my next book.
There
You're
you
going to
go.
be in my next book.
I expect.
Yeah.
I expect it. But I do want to talk to you a lot about the Cilantro Diaries.
I would love to talk about it.
Okay, because you mentioned some things. You were speaking my love language around strengths. So I want to tease those out for our listeners
I've already forgotten. Do I talk about strengths?
You talk about strengths a couple of times.
I knew that. And
one of them is very, very dear and near to my heart. So, but first off, as we begin, I want to know, what are your top 5 strengths?
So my top 5 are context, restorative, activator, positivity, and woo.
And if you're going to sum those up, what do those mean for you?
You know, I fall in love with these 5 more over time because I feel like when I embrace them, they're just so me. And so I feel like I'm looking at like my strengths fingerprint. It's like only I have it. And so to me, I mean, I feel like I can put everything I do, everything I work on in one of the 5. Like I know exactly what it is. So, and I'll tell you, my number 1 is the one that I really, if you get to know me, I'm a context. Like I'm so context that if I'm going to have a meeting with someone, I'll call someone else and be like, hey, what's the story with so-and-so? Like, give me the story. And I'm just like, I have to know the context. Probably why I love biographies. I love, there was a point when I worked in the UK with Rackspace where I was the annoying guy in the UK. It was like, well, we did this 3 years ago in the US. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
They were like, shut up, it's not the US. So, but I can't turn my context off. But to the strengths world, I mean, it's how I make decisions. It's how I process information. It's how I strategize. And so I love it, So to me, I feel like I've embraced how special I feel when I look at my top 5 because I know who I am and I know what I'm not. I know that my 5, restorative activator, I want to get things done so badly. And it's why I think I work well with guys like Graham, for those of you who don't know Graham Weston, because he's so strategic and I just want to pick up a shovel and start digging. And so I think we go well together because I want to get things done, but also I want to get them done in a way where we're not creating enemies, where we're winning people over to our cause. And that's what my strengths, I think, sum up for me.
Yeah, your positivity and woo is easy to see. Like when I see the combination of positivity and woo, I think that's the party in a person. I want to go sit by that person. And I think that's what you were known for across the Rackspace culture. By the way, you and I met at Rackspace.
Yes.
But getting to know you and reading your book showed us the other sides of you, that context and restorative piece. And by the way, this is a great book. The Cilantro Diaries is a great book for...
Thank you.
Well, not just that. I was going to finish my sentence.
Oh, sorry. It's a great book, period.
It's a great book. It is. A good book. A great book for recent graduates. When you say?
Yeah, when I was writing it, I had one of my nephews that just joined the Navy. Like I had him in mind because I need to give him something to take with him. And then my other nephews are about that getting into the workforce age. And so I just thought to myself, I really want to save them all the pain that I went through. And so that was kind of my urgency. Was I had a very specific audience in mind, but I knew if I could hit it, if I could hit it for them, I could hit it for other people. And I think that's what's really happened is people go, oh man, I bought this for my son or my daughter, and I had a guy that said, I called a family meeting as soon as I read your book. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, I should have taken it more serious.
That's awesome. Well, I think it shows the personal journey you've taken through your context activator. So follow me for this for a second. But your context was constantly looking for backstory or wisdom, to speak, right? And your activator is gunning, right? I want to be a director. I want to keep moving. I want to be like the next step, growth.
Or to the restorative, I'm constantly looking so I can fix the problem I'm dealing with right now. Whether it was, I'm in my current job bagging groceries or being a director. Part of my context was I need to read a book for the context to solve the problem I'm in right now. And then, it works. And then I'm so happy when it works. I have to tell everyone, look, it worked.
And I love it because you put it all into a book. So that's awesome. Well, in your book, you did talk about strengths in several different contexts. And the first way you introduced it is probably the way that you're known best in your book is about the idea of a personal board of directors. So let's just talk about that for a moment. About how you didn't talk about strengths finder language per se. You just talked about strengths in philosophy or strengths in general. Right. And so when you're thinking about your personal directors, why is it so important to select your personal directors based on their strengths and not just because of who you like or who you admire?
So when I was writing the book, I was also listening to the audiobook of Walt Disney. And it was so cool. And actually, I'm so glad I get to geek out with you on this because when I was reading his book, I could start picking off Walt Disney's strengths based on descriptions that people had of him. There was one, so ideation, that guy, as we can probably tell, he oozed ideation. He was an ideation machine. He was a futuristic guy, so he had futuristic guaranteed. He was also command. I could start picking off these strengths. But I realized that when you read his book, without a partner, he would have been homeless. I'm convinced of it. He had no business acumen per se. He had no desire to do business. He wanted to create. And without his brother, Roy was the one that went and got all the money, made the business this business so that his brother Walt could do all this crazy stuff. And so when I was reading that book while I was writing my book, I thought, it just so happened they were brothers that had compatible strengths, but they needed each other. They could not have built that company without it. And I thought this is very similar to my personal board of directors. Is it the people on my board, like Dax, who he has strengths that actually I would be uncomfortable with myself having them, but because he has them and I trust him, I feel safe in their presence. Whenever he has a problem, his command says, we need to deal with the problem right now. And I'm so passive aggressive. I will avoid it. I'll do anything to not address it. And this is why Dax is my best friend. Is that nope, we're going to deal with it right now. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. And so to me, I think that when you're when you're tackling life, you have to go find those people that finish the puzzle, right? And I think that's what is so beautiful about strengths. Does that answer your question?
Heck yes. I love it. So, you painted a picture for me in that story about finding someone, you get to be who you are and find someone that you're not. And then don't try to become them.
Right.
Just put them in such a circle of influence in your life that they get to speak into your plans, your career.
That's exactly
your
right.
pathways, whatever you're going, what direction you're going in, and you give them authority.
Well, and also, too, I think that the people... I when I was at Rackspace, as you know, there were so many freaking smart people at Rackspace, and I was just so overwhelmed by the sheer number of brilliance. And so I would just have all these crushes. I had all these intellectual crushes. And that guy I talk about in the book, Brian Thompson, he was just so in control of the emotion. My woo is like riding a bull. Can I stay on? And he was in control. He knew he did not waste words, and he did not let his emotions rule him like I feel like I did mine. And so I had such a crush on him, and I went, I'm never going to be him, but I want to sit close to him because I want some of his that to rub off on me. But then I got the next best thing, which was we were roommates for a brief time in London, and so I got to draw from the well, and then I got to become his friend. Then I got to call him for advice. And that is, I think part of the strange journey is that I could not be him ever. But if I invited someone like that into my circle, man, am I going to make better decisions.
That's awesome. It's awesome to use a tool like strengths to think about how you round out your board of directors. There's another example in the Cilantro Diaries when you talk about strengths, and you talk about it in the team context. And I would even venture to say that it works culturally, but you say this, that teams need a shared language. And strengths can be a shared language. Tell me more about what that means to you.
Yeah, I think that to me, I think that when you have a shared language, it's almost like being invited into a gang. And you go, like, it's almost like the secret decoder ring. We have this thing that if you're on the outside, you don't get it, right? You know, and what I love about strengths is that I think people like to be a part of a club. And so when you have the strengths language and you meet someone that has it, you instantly boom boom. But I think that to me, I forget the book that I read, but it was a leader that Rackspace brought in for one of our offsites, and he was talking about how the brain is not designed to be diverse. Do you remember that? Steve? Okay, I need to write his name down later. So, but do you remember that talk?
Yes, diversity.
Where he was like, all the accounting guys, raise your hand. They were all together, and he said, our brain does not designed for you to sit next to someone you don't know. Your brain's trying to find what you already know.
Yeah. Save energy.
Yeah. And I think that to me, what happens is that when you have a shared language, your brain works less, right? Because if I walk up to a complete stranger, especially at Rackspace, where everyone I met was smarter than me, or I felt like every other person was way brilliant. And so to approach an engineer that's working on the Sony account and ask them for help was way hard. But if I had their strengths and I go, oh, you're an activator, I'm an activator too, all of a sudden, right out of the gate, it's so much easier because we had a common language. Like, you know, and it's so funny, the little things in the human experience that help you get things done or connect. I think it's about connection, that help you connect with another person. And I think that just having something like strengths gives you the edge. And so to me, I think it's one of the powerful things that you can deploy in a team. And when I was early on in my HEB days, you know, when we had all these little languages that we spoke in the back, that was really our version of a shared language. But it wasn't a helpful language. Like, we didn't learn anything from it. Whereas we got the strengths, I was like, okay, this is actually awesome. And I like know myself better.
For those who are listening, HEB is the number one store. The number one grocery store chain in Texas.
Yes. I would say actually they're in Mexico too.
Are they in Mexico?
Yeah.
Good. In case I ever want to move there, they're there. That's
good. If you ever go to Monterey, they're there.
I love HEB. In the Cilantro Diaries, you say something like, both life and work are a team sport, and you become a force of nature when you do it together. Man, that's a strengths quote in my book. You didn't say anything about strengths in it, but when I read it, I highlighted that baby. And you know, I want to know, how has strengths helped you create a team for both life and work?
Well, I think that you know, I know that one day you'll have Graham on your program, and I think that quote is, a lot of it was influenced by him. And when I started working for him directly, I've never seen someone use strengths in such a steroid injected, supercharged, you know, it was just amazing how he didn't do anything by himself. Like when I pulled back the curtain, he did nothing by himself. And before he did anything, he consulted with someone. And that someone was always someone really smart, but had their strengths were in that area he was about to dive into. And I just thought to myself, you know, I always thought very naively, so he's brilliant. But I always thought he had all the answers and he had all the experiences. But what he had was this amazing network of people that were almost like he would, you know, this is a bad example, but it was almost like the most amazing bug collection of human brains of all human history. And he could just pull out, this is, you know, but, you know, he's always so giving with his knowledge and so sharing. And so you want to help him. And I think that to me, when I say, you know, life and work are a team sport, and if you do it together, you become a force of nature, it's because I first saw him as this force of nature. And then when I realized this was the greatest tool in his toolbox, partnering with people whose strengths complemented him to achieve the amazing missions that he wanted to achieve, like $1 billion company, or buying an old derelict mall, or changing a dormant downtown, into this thriving tech scene. And those are all things that he used strengths for, which is just amazing to me.
Yeah, yeah. I was once in a meeting with him, and he was asked the question by another person in the meeting, do you require everyone you work with to take the strengths and take their strengths finder? And he said, no, I don't require it, but I don't work with anyone that I don't know their strengths. Like, he just sort of reversed it. And I thought, yes, he doesn't require it, but he's not going to do work with you unless he knows your strengths.
That's so Jedi. I was like, that's amazing. Well, and also, when I first started working with him, we were debating something, and he said, you need to read this book called The Power of Two. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is one of the top 5 books of my career. And so when I read it, it was about, I think the subtitle is making the most of your work relationships, but it's about it's basically a profile of the most legendary duos in industry. But there's 2 guys, it was a basketball team, I think it was Karl Malone and John Stockton. They were one of the case studies, Hewlett Packard. So they have these really great examples, and I think that Graham probably read that before he found Strength Finders, because I think The Power of Two kind of points to it, the whole notion that you got to partner with someone. And then I think Strength Finders gave him almost this buffet where all of a sudden it unlocked this cheat code for everyone around him. And then he knew now how to leverage the people around him for the right type of partnerships.
Absolutely. I think he's a perfect example of someone who may not know him, may point to him because he's in the news, he's a philanthropist, he's an investor,
right.
So he's in the news. He's a mover and shaker. You might point to him and say, well, he's a lone wolf.
Right.
And there's really no such thing as a lone wolf.
That's exactly right. That couldn't be further from the truth.
To learn more about Kathy Kirsten, visit her website, kathykersten.com. That's KATHYKERSTEN.com. Obey Your Strengths is produced by Geekdom Media in association with Game Day Media Enterprises. Executive produced by Lorenzo Gomez, John Garcia, and Michael Argent.